First one, really common with like brand new bass players, people just learning. The big misconception there is, well, I don't really use chords, so I don't really need to know them. It's just theoretical stuff. I don't need to, I don't waste my time with that. It wasn't until I started to understand chords and what they are trying to tell me in the context of a band scenario that I really started to like learn how to play the bass. Like, if you don't know what chords are, don't feel bad. A lot of bass players don't know the first thing about chords. There's a million YouTube videos out there. Go take a look at like the basics of chords, like the different kinds of chords, how they're constructed, and it's simple stuff. It's not complicated stuff, I promise you. So start with that. So that's the first and biggest hurdle, okay? Or biggest misconception. This is probably more for you intermediate players. You think, let's say you're reading like a chart or something, or your bandmate says, "Oh, I'm playing like a C dominant flat 9," and so this number two misconception is that you have to play all the chord tones. In order to support that chord, you have to play all the chord tones. Okay. So a C7 flat 9. And I could have picked any chord or whatnot. The point is, there's a big misconception around, seeing it charted somewhere and thinking, oh, as a bass player, I need to make sure like I cover all that territory. In that case there, we're talking about a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chord tones. You don't have to play all the chord tones. You really want to look at, if somebody tells you, hey, I'm playing a C7 flat 9, you want to use that as information and think of it more like this, okay? Okay, so they're playing a C7 flat 9, and I should probably make sure I support like some of those tones. You probably don't want to play like a regular, like an unflattened 9 in that situation, okay? But it doesn't mean you have to play a 9 at all. You might just play the root. And actually, there's a ton of guys out there that's all they do is play the roots. There's a little bit of foreshadowing there for you. So this is a big misconception on bass and other instruments as well, is that they see a chord and they think, oh my goodness, I got to make sure I play all those like tones. You don't. You can pick your battles. You can play 1 or 2 or 3. Like, it depends on your bass line. The third big misconception with when people see chords or are told like, here's the chord we're playing, on this bar, they immediately, I don't know if it's a habitual thing. It's probably a habitual thing because this is kind of how we learn. But they assume they have to play the root first. That you have to include the root at all, and the truth is you don't. You can play any one of the chord tones. It's a good idea to play, especially on the downbeat of the 1 of a bar that's playing C major. It's a good idea to play a chord tone, but it doesn't have to be the root. It could be the 5th, it could be the 3rd. Depending on the chord type, it could be any of the chord tones. And again, it doesn't. Anybody who says it has to be one way or another, you should be suspicious about. But that's the general convention. And I think a lot of like new bass players and new musicians just they in their mind they think, okay, I'm playing C major here, so I obviously I got to play C first. No, you don't. Play the fifth first. You could play the third first. Depending on the chord, you could play like a, what depending on the chord type, just don't challenge that habit if that's a habit of yours. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with playing the roots first. Just know that you have that option, and that just because you're supposed to be covering a chord during like a bar or two, don't just assume that it means you have to play the root first, or that you have to play the root at all. So that's the third big misconception. The fourth, this is getting a little more advanced, is that you can't go outside of the chord indicated. So, for example, let's go back to this, C major idea. You're expected to cover and support C major, just a basic vanilla C major chord, C, E, and G, in whatever shape you prefer to play that, right? You can add to this. Like, you don't have to just play inside or just those chord tones. Like, you can play one or two of the chord tones, and you can add other tones outside of it. Because when we're playing the bass, we're really playing melodically. We're not playing chordally. So we need to do things like, let's say I started in C here, and I want to go, play some kind of basic line, and I just added a couple of extra tones in there that don't belong to the chord. I'm using those as ways of like moving around a C major like idea. Don't look at chords as like instructions. Look at chords as a tool to inform you about what's going on in the music, and then use that information to create and interpret the lines you're going to play. Number 5 misconception about chords and bass. There's this idea that this one's getting more advanced still, and it's this idea that you're only allowed to play, and support the chord that's being identified. Let's say the chart says you should be playing C major. Well, there's the relative minor, which is a really common one chord substitution. Instead of playing C major, I just moved, through the basic triad there, 5, 3, 1. I could play A minor. It still has this C major supportive quality because of its relativeness. You may see a chord notation that says play C major over E, and a lot of bass players don't know how to approach this. And it's just like what it sounds like. Play C over E. So that means E is in the lowermost position, and it should be played like that. And this can be kind of more instructive. This is the one scenario where the chord notation or the chord somebody's telling you to play, where there is importance in what note how you voice the chord, and that's what this is all about. It's basically saying, put that E in the lowest voice. If you like this, great. If you want to subscribe, even better. If you want me to explore some of these topics in more detail, leave me a comment.